Declan's not on.
She's on.
Yeah, Declan's on.
Oh, okay, so,
So we're recording, we're live.
okay, great. So I want to welcome everybody here and I'd like to call to order the public hearing for the Madison Board of Selectmen regarding the Senior Tax Relief Program. Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you, everybody. So we don't have any members of the public here with us, but we have two board members, Al Goldberg and Jen Gordon, and then two people online. Great, so we have, it looks like two people online. And so just a quick summary, this is basically a process that started 12 to 18 months ago, led by Austin Hall and Heather Noblin in our senior services department, as well as working with our tax assessor and our tax collector and our finance department. It was a real team effort to how do we improve our senior tax relief programs and also make them more efficient and streamline them. And we also worked in cooperation with the Board of Finance. So I appreciate all the efforts that everybody made to come together for these proposed changes. We've already had a public information session that was held at the Senior Center last week that was well attended. There was a number of members of the public. And so tonight is the more formal public hearing that was called by the Board of Selectmen that we're required to do before we make significant changes to an ordinance. And so with that, I'm going to ask Austin Hall to go through a presentation that reviews the program changes that we're proposing. And then we can open up for questions. So, and this will be recorded so people can watch this later.
Thanks, Becky. So thank you for joining us. So
Just have to share your screen. Share.
Looks good. I can see it now.
thanks, Jack.
Do you want to do the preview though, the presentation? Keep saying. There we go.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Heather. Always there for me. All right, so
Jacqueline, when you see this, do you see the full slide or do you see like the slides on the side?
I think you have to go to the bottom where it's like the zooming in and out. You know how it says like 86%, and then see that little thing that looks like a
Presentation.
Yeah, I don't know what it's.
Well, it's
So-
on the screen here.
Yeah, right there. Press that.
So we did, but it didn't adjust.
Hold on, I'm seeing some. Hold on. No.
Huh.
I mean, it's pretty. It's still pretty clear though. You can still see it.
okay.
Weird.
Okay, so that.
All right, sorry about that, everybody. So why are we here? So we're required to reevaluate the local abatement and the freeze programs as part of the ordinance. So that's what we've been doing. And we're here also to what we've done leading up to this is discuss opportunities for expanding the program to help some of our most vulnerable residents in town. We wanted to continue to recognize the longevity of town residents. Many residents prefer the freeze concept over the local tax abatement, but immediately they're offered through a higher benefit through the tax abatement program. So that is sometimes a little confusing for folks. So we try to fix that. This streamlines the application process. And just for your information, the town is well under the annual spending cap. And currently, with the two programs, we are under 50%. We're at 42% of the approved budget. And the cap is set at 1%, which in the fiscal year 23-24 would be $943,666. So over the past year plus, town staff and Board of Finance members have met several times to discuss the programs and the ordinances. We've had the new proposal reviewed by our town attorney. And it was also approved unanimously through the Board of Finance on October 18th. So this is the timeline that we're under. So in October, the Board of Finance approved and recommended the draft ordinance with the revisions to the Board of Selectmen. The ordinance was then sent to Quality Data Services, which is the software that the assessor's office uses for a review. The Board of Selectmen reviewed the draft ordinance with recommended changes and then called the public hearing, which we are doing tonight. In November, this is tonight, we're holding the hearing. In December, the Board of Selectmen will review the ordinance again with the revisions and possibly take action to approve the final ordinance. And then in January, we'll post the ordinance for the required 15 days. And then in February, the new program would go live on February 1st, which is the first day for applications for the new year. So the town currently offers 4 programs, and we'll go through each one in detail. We have the local tax abatement or the local tax relief program. The goal of this program is to help some of our most vulnerable residents in town who are income limited. Eligible participants receive a credit on the new tax bill for the upcoming fiscal year, and it's a biannual application process. We also offer a freeze program, which is the local tax freeze. The goal of that is it tries to recognize residency by assisting long-term residents, and it targets an expanded audience of residents who are not able to receive the relief, tax relief program through the abatement. It also helps the residents who qualify predict their expenses. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Eligible participants in the freeze, their gross taxes are frozen at the base year, so the first year that they apply and get approved. Adjustments are made if the assessment is reduced, and it's an annual application process. So currently, we compare the benefit between the local abatement and the tax freeze, and whichever program gives the resident the higher benefit is the one they receive. And we're changing that, and you'll hear about that in a second. The third program that the town offers is the local deferral program. And the goal of this program is to help, again, assist the most vulnerable residents who need extra assistance in a given year or over time. Eligible participants are able to defer paying up to $8,000 per year in taxes. This is secured with a lien on your property. And the current interest rate of that lien is 1.5%. And that interest rate is determined yearly by the Board of Finance. And the fourth program that the town offers is the state circuit breaker program. The goal of this is to really help the most vulnerable folks in town. They also receive a benefit on their tax bill, and that is also a every other year application unless there are changes in your tax return or your situation. So these are some of the similarities between the programs. Need to be 65 or older by the end of the previous calendar year or have a disability status. You have to be an owner of the property for at least 1 year. And real property is house and house lot for which relief is claimed, and it must be your legal domicile. Residency status, you must live in your home, your primary residence, and occupy it for 250 days or more per year. You can be a surviving spouse of a previously eligible owner if you're 60 years of age or older. You can also be the spouse of a homeowner who's living in a nursing home on a permanent basis and you're 60 years of age or older. You can have joint ownership, and your benefit is made proportional to your legal interest in the property. And you can also be an applicant with life tenancy, or your home may be in a trust. These are Madison's demographics. We'll go over these quickly. The median income in Madison is $140,990. There's 17,691 residents in town with 6,719 households. As of 2023, the town's population of seniors, so 65 and older, is 23% of the town, or 4,069 people. Currently, there's 335 households receiving a tax discount, either through the freeze or the local relief. 321 of those households qualify as a senior, and 14 of those households qualify as a disabled person. 4.98% of total households in town receive either the local freeze, local benefit, or the freeze. So this is a breakdown of the local tax abatement or the local tax relief program. So the Board of Selectmen adopted the ordinance in 2005. Currently, there's 291 households that are receiving this benefit. Qualifying residents between 1 and 4 years of consecutive ownership with income up to $79,125 may be eligible for a $100 tax abatement. If you've owned your home for 5 or more consecutive years, then you see how the income and the benefits break down right below that last bullet point. Income calculations are based on the CPI, and they are adjusted annually. And the Board of Selectmen reviews this program every time there's a reevaluation in town. And then the Board of Selectmen would make recommendations for changes, if need be, to the Board of Finance and then at a town meeting. Some statistics for the grand list year 2022. The average is, and just aside, the average assessed home value for participants in the local abatement program is $229,210. So these are stories of who is receiving the local tax abatement benefit. So a little background on the types of folks and their situations. So you can see there's an 8-year-old retired real estate agent who's lived in town for 21 years with an annual income of $18,000. There's couples, one couple in their 70s who run a landscaping business, so currently employed. And you can see their income and what the program amounts to for them. And these are the details of the tax freeze program. So the Board of Selectmen adopted the ordinance for the freeze in 2016. Currently, there's 44 households who received the freeze. Now, many more have applied and have been approved, but the freeze isn't as beneficial to them right now as the local tax relief is. The maximum assessed value of your home, if you are on the freeze, cannot be more than $392,600, which means a market value of $568,557. That's based on the current average assessed home value in town, and that's adjusted annually as well. And then before this, or after that bullet point, you can see the guidelines for Grand List 2022. So it's broken down into years of residency and single or married. And that's how the assessor determines what the benefit will be. Participation is likely to grow with qualifying households as they increase in years of residency and switch from the town tax relief to the freeze program. After 5 years, the Board of Finance is required to establish a 5-member committee, including 2 members of the Board of Finance, and that committee then would report back to the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen on how the program is running, the effectiveness, and if required, what recommendations for changes they would have. And again, like we did before for the local abatement, this is, a snapshot of the kind of folks or the types of households that receive the freeze benefit. And now we'll talk about the deferral. So the deferral is a resolution by town meeting back in 1989, and that was in accordance with a state statute. It was most recently updated by the Board of Finance in 2015, and currently there are 13 households that defer their taxes. Currently, the maximum income for someone who's on the deferral is $79,125, and that's consistent with the local tax abatement program. Eligible participants may defer 100% of their real estate tax, not exceeding $8,000 in 1 year. You don't have to defer the total amount, but you can up to $8,000. Deferrals are secured with a lien on your property, and the current interest rate of that lien is 1.5%. The total amount deferred cannot exceed the assessed value with all of the liens on your property. An applicant cannot have a reverse mortgage or other liens listed on the property for which they are applying. And the taxes are not due until the sale of the property or death. The program is reviewed annually and revised as required by the Board of Finance. As I said earlier, they set the interest rate annually. The total amount deferred in Grand List 2022 is $80,886. And the total amount deferred since the inception of the program is $679,538. Again, another snapshot of the households that are on the program. So an 86-year-old widow whose income will change due to the death of a spouse, and a couple who've lived in town for 11 years. You can see how much the program benefits these individuals. And then finally, the state circuit breaker program, or the state tax relief. This, again, is a state mandated program that is not reimbursed to the town. If an applicant qualifies for this benefit, it's additive to the other programs. So this benefits on top of anything else that the town offers. And currently there's 141 households that qualify and are on the state tax relief program. So this is the cost of tax relief in town currently. So the local program with 291 participants costs $302,514. The freeze has 44 participants at $26,408. So the total recipients for the local and the freeze is 334 people, like we said. And then the value of that, or the cost to the town, is $328,922. The state program costs the town $74,272, bringing the total to $403,195. And like we said a couple slides ago, the deferral with 13 participants in the program has a cost to the town of $80,886. So that's the cost of the program now. And currently, we spend less than half of the approved budget, and the cap, as we said earlier, 1%, and the approved budget today is $943,666. So these are our proposed changes. So we are combining the local tax abatement and the freeze program into one program. And we'll name that the local tax abatement and freeze program for certain elderly and disabled homeowners. qualified applicants will now receive both the abatement and the freeze if they've owned for 10 or more years. Under 10 years of residency, they will receive only the tax abatement benefit. So with that 10 years of required residency, 18 folks who are currently enrolled in the program would have been kicked off, but we're proposing to grandfather those folks in. The income guidelines will be adjusted by the area median income, which is consistent with the current freeze program. And we will use percentages of that median income to calculate the tiers, which will now be 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70% of that income median. So this introduces one income tier structure from the freeze and matches the tiers of the local abatement benefits and does away with the married or unmarried structure. We'll also allow participants who are delinquent in taxes to participate. So this will allow folks to defer their taxes or receive tax relief if they owe back taxes to the town, which will allow them to help catch up as well with those payments. The maximum assessed value of your home cannot exceed more than $392,600. And that's based on the current guidelines of the median assessed value in the freeze program. And there are currently 12 people enrolled in the tax abatement program that would exceed this limit. And we're also going to grandfather those folks in so they won't be affected by the changes. The local tax abatement will continue to be adjusted annually by the CPI. We've added a $500 benefit for those in the highest income tier. And we've added a longevity bonus benefit of $250 to really recognize the folks in the program who have owned their home for 30 or more consecutive years in town. And just to recognize how long they've owned in town and how long they've contributed to our town. We're also adding an allowance for income infusions of one or more one-time swings in income that would otherwise reset the start date of your freeze program. So right now, for an example, you've qualified and applied for the freeze for 5 years. You know what your taxes are going to be over those 5 years, and then you have an income infusion of someone in your family passes away and leaves you money, or you have some other type of extra income that would then kick you out of the program. And by kicking you out, that drops you to the current mill rate, which really would expose those folks who really rely on this program. So we're going to allow for 3 occurrences per lifetime of these income infusions. We're going to allow for an affidavit to be used to claim medical expenses in place of an IRS Schedule A. Since the standard deduction has increased, most folks don't have enough expenses to file a Schedule A. So this will take into account those medical expenses that could have been filed on a Schedule A. It also clarifies the surviving spouse benefit. So should a death of a taxpayer occur and they were listed as the sole owner of the property. So an example, husband and wife, the wife is listed as the owner on the deed. The husband is not listed on there. They've been married 25, 30 years. The wife passes away. Currently, when the husband applies for the program the next year, it looks at it as he's only owned the home for 1 year because he's only been on the tax schedule for 1 year. This will, obviously they've lived in the home together for 25 or 30 years and have both been responsible for the taxes. So this does away with that eligibility concern. It also clarifies, we clarify the review process. So should the program reach 0.7% of the current town operating budget, we would notify the Board of Finance, and they will review and make recommendations going forward. And also clarifies the appeals process as well. So these are the new proposed guidelines with the estimated costs. So these costs are based off of current participants in the program. So this will get us up to using about 65% of the current budget. So still way under what the allowance is for the program. So the total estimated cost, all things being the same, goes to $617,038.25. So like we said earlier in the presentation, the next steps, we've done this public hearing today. Then the Board of Selectmen will approve the ordinance at a later Board of Selectmen meeting. We'll update the tax deferral resolution and then target a February 1st start date for the start of the new tax relief season. So now we can entertain any questions. There's nobody in the room. If anyone who's on Zoom with us, if you have a question, you can raise your hand and we'll bring you up.
There's 3 attendees right now on Zoom.
No hands are raised. If you want to give it a minute.
So I would also mention the printouts of this presentation are available at the Senior Center, correct? We were supposed to get copies of the library. I don't know if we did that yet, but I'll talk to Jacqueline about making sure there's copies at the library, and then the town clerk has copies of the presentation. And then it's also on the website. I think you have to go into the public hearing and it's posted there. So you have to look for today's date, and then it would show any materials for the meeting on the website. So people can read that as well as the draft ordinance, which is also available. And you're welcome to email the Board of Selectmen at bos@madisonct.org. Our board will be discussing this again on November 27th. And then and possibly taking action at that meeting. Or we may defer it to December if we get a lot of public comment back. But like I said, this is the second session we've had. We had a public information session last week at the Senior Center. But I do encourage anybody who's watching this recording later or people attending now to please don't hesitate to contact my office or Austin Hall directly as well if you have specific questions. Any other comments from board members? No? Good job. And no hands raised, it looks like still? So
Nope.
Okay, all right, well, thank you very much for joining us this evening, and we look forward to moving this forward. I guess I'll officially call the closure of the public hearing. All right, thank you.